What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and I'm here with Silver, Go Burns, and Rejeku, and we are the international podcast, and we are barely running right now. We're lucky to be here. We're just hoping everything continues to work throughout the entire podcast. So thanks to anybody who still shows up, despite the fact that occasionally you don't get a weekly podcast from me. It does happen. Just super busy and didn't have any render time available for you guys. So. For you guys in particular, Silver and Reg and Go. I was just like, it costs too much time to render your faces. But no, it was like games and stuff were coming up, and I was a bit tired, and I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to sit here and cut this. And it was unfortunately, it was with one of the patrons, so I'm going to post it probably this weekend because he was nice. Actually, he's not a patron. I think he's a patron of Maddie's, but he was cool. He was a developer. That was fun to have him on. Let's first discuss a little bit about one of the things we didn't do last time is talk a little bit about Silver and Go and see if they have anything on their channels coming up here in the next couple days. Any cool videos, Go?
No, just my discuss videos on Wednesday. My new series, which is very original. It's called Top 10. You probably never heard of a Top 10 video before.
What do you do in one of those?
Well, it just started out of boredom, and I decided to do like a Top 10 vehicles that I would like to see as like added to Lincoln Clay's Fleet and Mafia 3. Oh. And so it became popular, and I started doing more and more. And fortunately, this week I'm doing something other than Mafia. I'm doing a like top 10 Grand Theft Auto characters. What I do is I allow my subscribers to interact in it. I give them a couple days to send me their like picks, like their favorite character for Grand Theft Auto, and then I'll put it together, and then I'll post a video on that on Friday. And of course, on Sunday, I usually have my rant vids as well. So lately, that seems to be all that's going on because there's really not much else happening, like new release wise.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy release wise. There isn't like. I mean, there's a couple smaller things, but there isn't really anything huge coming up. And then Silver, are you doing anything more for your channel? I know that you've been busy, so it doesn't seem like
I've uploaded a couple of Witcher 3 videos in an attempt to kind of show people how it plays with the interface turned off.
Cool.
I've also uploaded just yesterday. I uploaded a Grand Theft Auto 5 video in an attempt to showcase one of my favorite cars in the game, the Obey Omnis, on a rally track. Yeah, and hopefully I'll be able to sometime next week finally get around to completing my Let's Play of Papers, Please and L.A. Noire.
Okay, so you think you'll get back to those in the next couple? I'm
hoping so, yeah. But whether that will happen or not is something life will determine. So
yeah. Life.
It has a habit of getting in the way. Yeah.
It does, doesn't it? And I do want to say to anybody, if there's audio issues, video issues, or any other issues, those are solidly Redjeku's fault, not mine. No, it's Skype. Skype's we're having all kinds of issues, so we're lucky to be here. But I apologize for any technical issues you guys notice. We have two things I want to discuss within the industry, and then we have a bunch of questions from patrons that basically cause us to talk about the things we would have put down as subjects anyway. The first, of course, is the World War II Call of Duty trailer / 1 second of real gameplay footage bullshit that got released. We'll just start with Silver. Did you watch it, and what did you think?
I watched it, and my only real reaction was meh. I mean, there's nothing there we haven't seen before. Was basically my reaction. I mean, I was part of the generation that grew up on Medal of Honor, Allied Assault, the first two Call of Duty games,
right,
and so on. So yeah, been there, done that. I had kind of hoped that they would maybe try to visit a different front, since it appears that once again we're going for Normandy, the French front.
Yeah.
So I kind of hoped that maybe we would see Italy, maybe like the Battle of Monte Cassino, which is one of the most interesting battles of the war, but it's one that doesn't see a whole lot of exposure. So I kind of hoped for that, and also just the name of the game, Call of Duty World War II. I mean, really. And I thought Shadow of War was a terrible name for a game, right?
It's all Shadows, Wars, Mordors, and fucking. I mean, like it is by now a Fred Flintstone ad-lib generator that comes up with these names.
You couldn't make a more generic.
You could not.
World War II shooter,
unless you just called it Call of Duty.
My point. Yeah.
Call of Duty, that time frame that we always play. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It really is a generic name. I mean, and the thing is I know names don't matter much, and they don't. I mean, in the long scheme of things, names barely matter. But it does get exciting if something sounds cool. You know, you're like, what is that?
Yeah.
You know, there's a little mystery here. There's absolutely no mystery. There's no nothing in it. It's just, it's just
I mean,
World War
it's a
II.
vital part of the first impression you get for the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
It's the name.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Reg? Did you watch the trailer? What'd you think?
I've only seen a few snippets of it. What I have seen, yeah, like Silver said, whatever.
Yeah, because you're not a big fan of that, of Call of Duties too much, are you?
Yeah, and I actually like the future stuff more than the World War One, Two, whatever.
You and I.
But I can say secondhand experience. I've been talking to a couple of friends who watched the trailer, and those that have not played the last couple of Call of Duties at least seem fairly excited for this one.
Oh.
They're saying finally getting back to World War II. I don't like all that future stuff, so I guess they do have an audience.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Go?
Yeah, I feel like Silver because that's when I used to love playing those original Medal of Honor and Call of Duty games because I'm a history buff, and that was one of the reasons why I was excited about Battlefield 1 last year was because they were doing something different. They were going back to World War I, which has been played in a couple games, but not as big as World War II, and it's been a long time since we had a major World War II game. So whenever they announced Call of Duty World War II, a few days prior to the trailer, I mean, it was leaked for like a few weeks. I was excited because like everyone else, I had lofty hopes and dreams and visions for what this could be.
Right.
And unfortunately, just like Silver said, I mean, why do we get the same thing over and over again? We've done D-Day, we've done Normandy, we've done the Big Red One. I mean, okay, so for the campaign, I get it. I understand that, but it looks like the multiplayer may even be the same thing where they're just going to use the same maps that you see in the campaign, the feature of the battles, from 1944 D-Day all the way to the end of the war from the U.S. perspective. But it wasn't just Europe. It wasn't just U.S. fighting that war. There was also the U.K. fighting. I think there's elements of the French resistance that was mentioned in the presentation. But what about the Soviet Union? They played a key role in winning the war against the Nazis. What about island hopping in the Pacific or North Africa or Sicily or Italy? I mean, I guess it's just a name that really just set the goal really high. And even though it looks good and they put a lot of work into it, I feel kind of let down, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm with Reg in the fact that I'm much more of a fan of stuff we haven't seen. But that's one of the problems with the video game industry is that we're getting older. And so you have this split where some people who are jumping in have never seen a World War II Call of Duty, right? So they're like, okay, great. Others have, and they remember those excellent times, and they're older, and they're like, okay, that's awesome because I remember this awesome time. And then others hold on to all the continued stuff, and it sort of becomes this really negative feeling where it's like you remember the good and the bad, and usually bad sticks in your mind more most of the time. Yeah. And so we all like have all these concentrated hates because for me, I liked World War II, but as each title came out, it was technically better, looked technically better, performed technically better, and to a standpoint. What happened is those became ingrained in my mind. So the idea of going back to World War II sort of to me makes me a little nervous. We're just going to reset everything. We're going to have a Vietnam next. We're going to have blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, not 100% sure I want to just recycle the cycle again. But this is something that happens in every industry, books, every writing, rap, everybody who seems to be fresh and new when you look at what they're doing. That is the way things are done. There is a very large amount of retread, I think. So, yeah, it's, I mean, I don't know. Right now, I didn't see anything that like shocked me and made me go, oh man, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. But I wasn't depressed. I do have to say that when I look at those games, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but when I look at Call of Duty games, there is a look to them. Especially their characters. And when there was a couple scenes, very few, that were real gameplay, and you'd see somebody move, and then you'd see like this other, it's almost like interpolation was playing off, and you'd see this other moment, and you could tell that was a cutscene. And you'd be like, oh, cutscene, real life, or real game, cutscene, real game. But when you looked at the real game stuff, it just looked like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 slapped into World War II. Like there's something about their faces, the way they look. Maybe it's their color schemes that they use. It doesn't look. I think Battlefield 1. I like the way it looked a little better. Like just I don't know, something about it. But it also feels not as deep. Have you guys noticed that? So like when you look at a Battlefield game and you look at a Call of Duty game, Call of Duty games, even in their fucking trailers, make me feel like your arena is this big. They'll pretend it's bigger, but it's really this big. This is how wide you can go to the left 50 yards, go to the right 50 yards.
Yeah.
Battlefield 1, and I, as everybody knows, I'm not a Battlefield above Call of Duty kind of person. I'm talking about what I feel, though, when I see their stuff. Battlefield just feels open. It's always felt more open than Call of Duty. And even in their trailer, I'm like, it's like they're driving in the tank, the guy's on the tank, and they're going through a valley this wide, and you're like, yeah, I know how this. I know what's going to play off here.
The main problem I have with the Call of Duty series is that you can so easily spot all those scripts. So
yeah, exactly.
That the respawning, you have to take one step further, and the respawning stops, stuff like that.
Yeah, and he's absolutely right. There's a couple games where like you'll walk around a corner and you'll be like, there'll be a bad guy there, just because game development over years.
Yeah.
But I would certainly agree that shut up, dog. I would certainly agree that in World War II games, in first-person shooter games, and in Call of Duty games, it's the 3 tiers where it gets worse and worse and worse as you go forward. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I like Titanfall 1 and 2 more than maybe some of the Call of Duties, because of the way they just felt and moved, and the way some of the scripting worked. They had like in multiplayer with the bots that were, what were they called? Like this pedestrian guys that you could shoot for, easily. And then there was a human you'd fight against. I sort of like that switch up. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I'm not excited or depressed about it. It's another Call of Duty. I think we all assumed this would be the time frame that they were going to announce it. I mean, it was leaked, that they were talking about it. So I don't think there's any surprise there. I was trying to do a walking the walk here recently, and I was doing Mad Max, and it popped into my head, and this has been asked a couple times, like, what is it about a particular game world that really, really interests you, and why do you think one game world interests you more than the other? And so I wanted to ask you guys, like, especially for games maybe you thought were going to be good, and then once you got it, you weren't as into the world as you expected. Case in point, GTA 4 and 5. I thought I was going to be more interested in 4. Just the honest truth. Russian, Nico, I was like, something about this, ignoring the gameplay, the world. Like, I really felt like I was going to be more into it. But 5, I was super into it, and I was not expecting to. And I don't know if that was the mechanics or anything, but do you guys have an example of like a game that you thought you were going to jump into? It was maybe open world or an RPG, and then once you got it, you're like, something's not hitting right. Do you remember one, Silver?
Yeah, for me, Dishonored. I heard a lot of good things about Dishonored.
Yeah.
I thought I heard a lot about how interesting and wonderful the game world was. But when I started playing the game, I just sort of felt alienated by it. I think part of the problem for me was partially the art style. I could never really get beyond that, like the giant hands and so on. It just it felt off to me.
Yeah, they do have a pair of man hands on them, don't they?
Yeah.
Whenever they show up, it's like they're wearing foam fucking hands. And I've had friends who don't notice that, and then when I tell them, they're like, I can't play the game again. It's like a goddamn, it's like a bunch of monsters. That's a good point. You think art style had something to do with that?
Yeah, art style was a very heavy part of that, and I think lighting as well in parts. I didn't think the lighting was all that effective in the game.
Yeah.
It felt off in places too.
You and I agree on that. Would you say it was the use of color, the filters, or was it a little? I noticed it felt a little cartoony looking. There was something about it that looked like a music video.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily mind that it was cartoony looking, because I mean I loved the game like 13, which we've talked about on the podcast before, like the cel shaded first person shooter. So I think that can work. But it just, for some reason, it just felt off to me. It didn't feel natural, really, as a part of a cohesive whole.
But don't you feel that, like, I feel like the more the distance and the difference that's there, the better. For 13, you knew it was like cel shaded. So it made more sense. With Dishonored, it's almost Uncanny Valley without needing to be. It's like, here's something ugly, but it could be pretty, depending on what you think, versus here's a comic book game. If you get my drift, so I agree with you. I think the difference, or the overall distance in the difference is what matters. And once you start looking at it, the more distance between like what you expect the easier it is for me to sort of turn off my brain and go, okay, they're going for this. But if they try to look somewhat like other games, like Skyrim or something, I'm like, Two Worlds and Skyrim, for example, are two games that looked a lot alike. And you were like, this one doesn't look like what I'm expecting. So, yeah, that's a good point. What about you, Reg? Is there any game that you were like, this just did not get me?
The most recent one would be Zelda. It didn't really grab me.
Would you say it was, what do you think that was?
I think a mixture of things. I felt, I guess the quest structure is not to my liking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not enough red, what's it called? Not enough direction. Red thread. Thank you.
Gotcha.
That was the one I was missing. I don't know. And then I tried going to areas where I obviously wasn't supposed to go yet, getting instantly killed by some lightning and stuff like that.
Yeah. I would have to
me
agree.
and that game not getting along that well.
Yeah. I mean, I would have to agree that, like, and I like how you put it. You put it much more succinctly and nicely than I would have. But you said not for you. You said the game, you know, the world is not for you. And I'd be like, what the fuck? But it isn't for a lot of people. And the red thread thing, I'm glad you mentioned it, because a lot of people I know do like a little bit of red thread. Some people want none. I like the option. So if I turn off the HUD, that's one thing. But if I have no HUD, that's another thing. Like, I gotta go, you know, there's different mentality usually in the game design at that point. So I can see that. I think that's completely legitimate. And there's a lot of people who dislike Zelda for various other reasons that maybe aren't as legitimate as that one. But to me, that sounds completely legitimate. What about you, Go? Is there any title you remember?
Yeah. I'm actually going to borrow your comparison between Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5. Now, when Grand Theft Auto 4 came out, it looked completely different than what we were used to in the 3D series. You know, the last one was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and like, wow, amazing. It looks more realistic. And I did enjoy playing it when it came out. And yeah, Nico is a fantastic character. But with Grand Theft Auto 4, Rockstar went in an obvious different direction, not only with the graphics, but with the style. There were some humorous parts, but it felt a lot more gritty, not as funny. And I mean, I'm not talking about over-the-top humor like Saints Row, but not Grand Theft Auto humor. Right. Because, you know, there's different levels. And obviously, graphically, Grand Theft Auto 5 looks way better. But also, Grand Theft Auto 5 has that humor that was lost, you know, in Grand Theft Auto 4. They went back and they probably listened to the fans and say, look, you know, we need to add some more humor back into this game. It's good to have some drama moments as well, some real moments. But at the same time, this is a Grand Theft Auto game. We need satire. We need more humor. And it feels like that they kind of cut back on that in Grand Theft Auto 4. And another issue, I think, is how confined it felt, because you were playing in Liberty City, and it's nothing but city. You know, there's different parts of the city, but there's no open, like, lands and mountains and lakes. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's the water around the islands, but that's one thing I love about the fact that of the map of Southern San Andreas and Grand Theft Auto 5 is that you can leave Los Santos behind and just go north out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, those are actually really good points about that I think a lot of people probably feel but can't sort of put into context. But when it comes to like GTA, I know that when I'm playing 4, I expect, because it's a city, this is not fair, by the way, I'm just saying what I expect. I expect more interaction that doesn't occur. And so there's this bounce where you're bouncing into expectations that aren't met. And, you know, you can go bowling, but only in this way. You can do this, but only here. And what happened was, I think that I think honestly a lot of it was memory and like the engine and all that stuff, but 5 just felt more like cohesive. I wasn't bouncing off things. In fact, 5 was just more of a playground for me. I was like, okay, I can do this, I can do that. Where the city in 4 is fantastic at times. If you have like Ice Enhancer, the graphical enhancer, and you have your powerful PC, I destroyed a video card back in the day when you had to use a special driver for that, and it would run your card hot. And I was like, what do you mean run it hot? And fucking destroyed it. I loved that. So, but I agree. I would say all those are good expectations. Here's mine. Oblivion and Skyrim, technically. So I came off of Daggerfall and Morrowind, and adored it. I haven't been into a game like Morrowind in years. I'm telling you, I'm pretty sure Morrowind caused a couple relationships to fail in my life, and that's pretty rare for me because I'm very healthy in that way. I get out, but Morrowind, I enjoyed nothing more than like selling people shitty items so that the storekeep would put it on, or stealing their hat and running off. And I have videos of me like with a bunch of hats in my pack running, and there's like everybody in the town is like, get him. And I was just like, it was a playground. And something about Morrowind was dark and red, and their color scheme, volcanic color scheme. And I think the first place is Sayadine. Somebody also pronounce it right, I'm sure, in the comments. But the first place you go to, and the first thing he says is like, when what is your name? The guy who's talking to you, all of that just like, and then I got into Oblivion, and it's like Patrick Stewart's fucking talking to me, and I'm like, what's Patrick Stewart doing here? And why another prison? And I get attacked, and you walk out, and you have that moment in Oblivion when you walk out, and you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then it just went down from there for me. And it wasn't a bad game, and I modded the hell out of it with OOO and MMM, which are two huge mods, which made them much more fun. There's something about that for me. And I think with Oblivion, it was bouncing off expectations too. There was just something about it that just didn't feel right. I think for me, it was graphically. It just was too, I know it sounds weird, but I came off of Morrowind, which was like the dark, gritty. Even the guys talked like they had fucking cancer, tumors in their throats. And they're like, and then you go into Oblivion and they're like, hello. And there's, grass weaving in the wind. And it was like going from, some super dark Lord of the Rings to Legend or Willow from Steven Spielberg or something. It was just that difference there. So good question. I don't remember who asked it, but they asked it a while ago. We started talking about it. I looked at the open world. I was doing Mad Max, and I was like, that's actually a good question, because I can't tell people why I love Mad Max. I just have to do a walking the walk because it's too hard to describe. And I know a lot of people like some games and don't like others. It's interesting to discuss it. And those are some good examples.
For sure.
So the next up are some questions. We won't always do a bunch of questions, but what happens is, because people are seeing the same news we are, a lot of times they ask questions in either a better way, or they just ask the questions, and we don't have to like go, okay, what should today's industry byline be about? So we're going to go through these one at a time. I'll try to skip any that are just about me, because that's not what this is about, which the first one is, but it's a good question. Manny says, are you going to review Switch games? That's very open-ended, so I'll say yes. I will review Switch games. That is all the information I have right now. Dustin Nolcamper says, how do y'all feel about Total War Warhammer 2 coming out without a historical title in between? Oh, I get you. And what should be the next historical title? Okay, that's a good question. Silver, what do you think about that? What do you think? I'm starting with Silver Go because he's a big fan of it. What do you think about Total War 2 Warhammer? I think I already know the answer to this. But what do you think about it coming out without a historical title in between?
I don't mind at all. I mean, it's basically, but they outlined it from the start, and they've also been pretty clear about the fact that they have a separate development team working on historical Total War. So no, I don't mind it at all.
What do you think the next historical one might be?
That's a really good question. Reportedly, it's going to be an era they haven't visited before. So that's
the future.
Nice.
Are they going Call of Duty on us?
No, I don't.
Total War, Advanced Warfare, Warhammer.
I don't see how that could work, because I don't see how that could work because basically they had some difficulty even in translating like colonial era warfare to the engine. So I can't see at all how that engine would work in like World War I, World War II, whatever. And that type of combat that you have in the game, where it's very you're very dependent on regiments and formations and so on.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think it's that at all. I think we are going to go back to maybe a classical period, maybe like, but even ancient Egypt, we kind of had that a little bit in Rome. Because you could play the Egyptians there. So, and we've had, so I don't know, maybe China, maybe like the Three Kingdoms or something. That might be something. That could be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, especially
like ancient China.
Yeah, ancient China, especially with their history, because there's so much that happened there. You could definitely cover some stuff. What about you, Reg? I think I saw on Discord you said something about like you've only played 30 minutes of Total Warhammer.
Yeah, right? Not even.
So are you well? How about this? Are you a Total War fan normally?
No.
Oh, okay. So none of this really matters to you too much. Why?
That's quite
how
right.
did you get to, or how did you get Total War Warhammer then? If you,
I don't know. I thought it looked interesting enough, and I do like Warhammer.
he's like,
so.
I believed you, Karak, you son of a bitch. It's this and Anno. No, Anno I think you liked. You just didn't like it as much as me, if I remember right.
Yes, I know I was a bit disappointed in what they cut away, but otherwise it was all right.
And Anno is a good title because it sort of opened my eyes to like the thought process that we talk about all the time, which is a game that its sequel has less than the title before it, and you're like, I was like, no, this is fine. For the price, I still think it's fine. But then once you and I started talking about it, I was like, oh shit, you know, it is. I mean, they have to take care of legacy people somehow. So yeah, those are good points. What about you, Go? I mean, are you a fan of Total War Warhammer?
Oh yeah, I'm a fan of Total War. It's just I haven't played one since Empire, and I feel the same way you guys do about it. I mean, I like the fact they were trying to do something different, but it didn't really work compared to previous like medieval Rome, etc. And it's hard. I mean, it's difficult to make that work compared to all these other genres because the fighting style changed over the centuries. We had new weapons, and I don't know. I mean, one thing about Total War is you want to have as many factions as possible without feeling like it's just being padded. So if you were to do something, say, like American Revolution, where it's just America, you know, the Continentals and militia versus the Royal, like the British Empire, it would probably feel too confined. The same thing with probably a civil war with North versus South. So you would need to find an era where you have several nations that you could pick one, and each one has its own unique style and unique weapons and military. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like most of them have been done already. And maybe, like Silver said, maybe go back to the Middle Kingdom, go to China. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Reg, I didn't get to ask you, is there a historical time that would interest you? Or is China, like, what? I mean, because the other one was Japan, right? Yeah, they did Japan. Empire is probably my favorite.
Sure, they did Japan.
Even though I know I might be the only one who likes Empire that much.
Oh, I liked Empire.
I liked Empire, but I liked the Napoleon more. I thought Napoleon was basically refining Empire to perfection, more or less.
Mm-hmm. So, Reg, is any time span that you're like, this might be more interesting to me?
Knights. I don't know. Dark Ages.
Oh, Dark Ages.
That's medieval Total War.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See, I don't know my Total War.
Yeah, and they've already. It was what Medieval 2 before Empire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So. And the thing that Reg actually brings up a good point by mentioning that we're running out of historical data for wars like this. And
Total
a lot
War
of people,
caveman.
Yeah, a lot of people will be like, oh no, we're not. Millions of years happened. They did, but history overall,
I just thought of a cool idea.
Groups it together. So go ahead.
What about Native American tribes? Total War, like before.
They didn't war like that though. I mean,
they did also sort of have that with Empire. They had an expansion pack.
Okay, they did. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about
that. For the native tribes.
Yeah, it was
they did fight each other, but not to the degree of
degree.
Other countries.
Total War, like Native American. There's like two dudes on a horse and two dudes on a horse, and you're like, I mean, they did have they were smarter. They didn't stand in a line and shoot each other in the face.
Yeah, they didn't have legions and catapults and cannons.
Yeah. Or magic catapults and cannons, which just turned into griffins in Total War Warhammer. That is one thing. I was talking with a friend. I was like, listen, if you want to be brutally honest, really Total War Warhammer is more of it's not a mod, but it's like every item that occurs there, you can sort of draw a context to, some kind of ballistic eye of some kind. What were you going to say?
Well, in that case, let's flip it. What other fictional genre would we like to see a Total War series made of?
Oh, Dragonlance, without a shadow of a doubt. It's an older TSR, Dungeons and Dragons. It was the largest. I think it's got about 400 novels. It was their largest series for probably 20 years. And it revolved around the Knights of Takhisis and the Knights of Huma, their hero from that world. And the entire game revolved around all of this stuff. And they had a history that was, I mean, I've got some of their source books and lore. It is insanely detailed. And without a shadow of a doubt, I think that one fits perfectly. And back in the day with the boxed sets, when you'd buy like from, what was the video game company that sold those? Sierra? No, Sierra.
Yeah.
Was it Sierra who sold like
I think so.
The Pools of Radiance and stuff, those older.
Yeah.
Okay. So they did a couple Dragonlance ones as well, and I would love to see that. Dark Sun is another TSR thing where all the worlds are the world's basically a desert, and it's after like not an apocalypse, but it's a magical kind of apocalypse. I think a lot of it comes down to D&D or Warhammer. You know, like those are the two we know. Because I mean, you could do Tolkien. I mean,
that's where I would.
They've been done. I think the problem with Tolkien is that it's being done in other avenues now with Shadow of War, the Warrening. It's like all these names. Anyway, I think you're right. I think Tolkien would be great, but I think right now might not be the time where they can grab attention for that as much. But Tolkien always seems to get some excitement, so maybe it would. Is there a series of books out? That's usually what happens. Yeah, like a series of books comes out, they're really popular, and people are like, the Harry Potter Wars, Total War Harry Potter. Yeah, Total War Twilight. Now, Total War Twilight would be fucking, I would play the shit out of that game, man. A bunch of hot-looking vampires and werewolves just getting destroyed.
No, it'd be all about drama.
Yeah, it would be. It's all diplomacy. There's no fighting. You just sit together and you like try to figure out the other person's gambit. You're like,
taking off your shirt. Yeah,
exactly.
For no reason. Yeah,
it's like I got to work on my motorbike. Working on motorbike +5 to charisma. So we are. I think that takes cake. I think we're all pretty much looking for Total War Twilight to be the next historical title. The Peoples and Dragons asks, too late for the 2DS XL, which is the new 2D. What a fucking Nintendo.
Yeah,
3DS.
handheld.
Is there a demand for this? Is this their plan B for those on the fence for getting a Switch? What do you think, Go?
I think that this is just my opinion regarding Nintendo and their focus. I think they should focus all their efforts on the Switch because there's a high demand for it right now, and they sold 5 million?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, they sold a surprisingly impressive amount of units compared to what they were projecting. A lot of that has to do with Zelda, though. But I think personally that Switch is the DS killer. So I say they just focus on making Switches and just start, like shifting towards the Switch because it's everything. It's a system you can take on the go. It's a system you can play at home. I mean, might as well.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just so you guys know. I think this is $199, isn't it? For this?
Yeah. No, $150, I think.
Okay, $150, which that's a good price, but it's still. You look at the Switch and what the Switch will be priced at maybe in a year. Maybe it is Nintendo, who's notorious for not dropping prices, but. It is a little worrisome, in that element. It's like, because a lot of people are asking for Switch games and third-party developers, man. On NeoGAF, one of the places I go to, a lot of the forums I go to, they have threads where it's like, this developer just said they're not supporting the Switch, and I'm like, fuck. It's time for Nintendo to have a development team like Sony and Microsoft do, who go to the developers and say, what do you need? Like, what would you absolutely need for us to get your game on our system? What about you, Reg? I mean, what do you think of it?
Well, I'm thinking it's maybe the last hardware refresh. I'm seeing it like that kind of thing. It's the little bit cheaper version of the 3DS without the 3D feature, but basically the same apart from that.
What do you think they saved, Reg? What do you think they saved by dropping? I mean, it couldn't have been that expensive to do that little 3D.
I don't know. It's a passive 3D screen. I have no idea how much they cost.
I mean, it just seems like if it was a bunch, you would have seen that in the price, and 150 even doesn't seem to be.
Well, it's like it's $50 difference to the regular 3DS XL.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge difference. But it's finally having the clamshell design the 2DS never had. That thing was basically useless, I thought, at least. Maybe the out-phasing version of the 3DS.
It's a good point. Yeah, it's good. It's probably just the starting of the 3DS XL Classic that they'll sell for 6 weeks on eBay. What about you, Silver? What do you think?
Well, for me, the Switch was never a competitor to the 3DS, just simply because the 3DS is considerably more portable. I can fit the 3DS into my pocket. Barely, but I can do it. I can't fit a Switch into my pocket. I have to carry it under my arm if I'm going to lug it around, basically. Yeah, or in a backpack or whatever. So it doesn't compete in that regard. But I mean, the new DS doesn't interest me at all because I already have the new 3DS, so it's not made for me. I assume it's made for the market share that hasn't invested in a 3DS yet, and at that price point, I think it's a really good strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's weird how consoles go and how handhelds go. When you step back and look at the market, it's very odd because consoles have a tendency to drop in price and either offer more or the same, except for the PS3 dropping the chip and so forth. That everybody knows my hatred for that. But then you have like Nintendo, who's like, it doesn't have this, but it's cheaper, and you're like, okay, I get that. But it's almost like you're not making any different. You're not reaching out to the consumer. You're not saying it's the same but cheaper. You're like, it's not the same but cheaper, and you're all fuck. Like, can you do the same but cheaper? Can you? Because with consoles, you can get a PS4 for cheaper, an Xbox One S for cheaper, and one's 4K. The Pro, they're trying to. I guess it's probably a good reflection of Nintendo not having a handheld competitor. That would most likely be what we're seeing.
That too.
Is no competitor, and so they don't feel there isn't a drive there. Go ahead.
They never dropped the Wii U price either, did they?
Okay. I don't know, but retailers did for sure. That's. I don't know if
but I think it's more of a Nintendo thing of basically never dropping the price. I think they did once for the 3DS, if I'm not mistaken. That's it.
It's not only that; it's offering less. Okay, don't drop the price. But
no, not this one. The 2DS. I think the 3DS originally launched at $250, something like that. Gotcha. So over all the years that it's been out, they dropped it by 50. I don't know anything about the Vita, so this is going into uncharted waters. I have no idea.
Okay. I was just going to ask if it dropped in price, and if they had a new version, if they removed or added features, because
they had a new version, but I don't know if it was priced differently.
It just feels to me like it's completely a mobile handheld thing that these guys do. And it feels different than the consoles, but I could be wrong. I'm sure people are going to be pissed.
I know that the newer version of the Vita had a worse screen, but I don't know if it was still priced the same.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have anything other to say on that because I don't have one, and I will say this. I think Go is right in one way where he said it's a competitor to the Switch. I don't think he or I can speak for myself and say I don't think necessarily Nintendo planned that, but I do think that it has become that for many, and so I think maybe there's also. But I can see that. I could see Nintendo going, oh shit, we want to make sure people don't think that, so let's really. And you're like, okay, I get it, but at the same time, not being able to fit it in your pocket is one thing. That's a huge thing, but you can take it with you or put it in a backpack. Yeah. And we're getting to the world now where laptops are becoming the portables. Like when you hear people talking about them, they're like, and then netbooks tried and those didn't do so well, but they tried to branch it a little bit more. So I see a lot of people just going, yeah, it is bigger, but I'm not wearing fucking cargo pants anyway. So fuck it. Yeah, I'm just going to carry it under my arm.
And people take their iPads with them. So,
and people take, I have a 10-inch tablet. By that point, it's a fucking computer. Go ahead, Reg.
For a good long time to come, the library size will be a massive difference between the two still.
That's true.
That's true, yeah.
Okay, I have a question for you. We'll start with Silver since we ended with him. Silver, let's say this morning we woke up and instead of the 2DS XL, we get the Nintendo Switch, which is a lesser powered Switch that can fit in your pocket. smaller screen, lesser powered Switch that plays Switch games. Is that a better idea than this or a worse idea?
For me, that would probably be a better idea. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, what about you, Reg? Better or worse idea?
Probably worse. I want an XL version of it.
Which is a Switch. What about you, Go?
How can it be lesser powered? I mean, people are ripping on it for not being nowhere near as powerful as the Xbox One.
My Casio watch can't do 3D, so there you go. But no, so lesser powered. Let's say it always runs at 480p or something.
Yeah, I think eventually, yeah, we probably will see a slimmer version of the Switch, and maybe for Reg and others, maybe even XL edition. That would be kind of cool. But
what do you think? Do you think it's a better or worse? Do you think that'd be a better or worse option?
I think right now it would be a bad idea because they're trying to obviously promote the Switch. So that's what they want to get out there, and I think it's going to take time for the technology to get to the point where they can do that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't. I mean, I see where it could be positive for some people, but to me, like this. I think they're both bad options, but I think this is the best of those stupid things that you can do. I just don't know why they're doing it. The next question, also from Peoples and Dragons, I believe. Oh, I didn't copy the name down. I apologize. Injustice 2 Joker reveal leaked. Talk about ruining the surprise. How do leaks happen in the game industry? Should blood be spilled? Yes. If not,
Yes.
though, why? I like how he's like, here's my answer. What's yours? So I'll go first on this. So leaks happen because, in all honesty, it is very hard to control what's going on any one thing. I did notice there's a particular game. I don't want to ruin it because I don't know if everybody knows this. There's been a couple that have watermarking with your username in the actual picture interpolated, and it's there. And so a company can, if you upload to YouTube, they can grab that and go and look and go, this username is associated with this leak. It's a very intelligent way to do it. There's other ways to do it that I'm not going to say that some developers are using now to track that down. So some consider it important, some don't. Why do they happen? Well, because people want to be in the know. I mean, they want to be the one to say it. They want to be the one to give out the information. They want. We're living in a post-Kardashian world, so everybody thinks either you're getting fucked on camera or you're fucking somebody over on camera. Those are the ways to become popular. And I mean, what we see is that usually these people are fly by night. They post something, a couple people look at it, and then they get some account turned off. It doesn't really help them, but it does happen. No. Should blood be spilled? Yeah. In all honesty, when somebody leaks something like that, truly just leaks it, like shows video and all that stuff, I mean, blood be spilled? I don't know exactly how literal. This is
not
Twitter.
Literally.
This is Twitter, so he could mean garrot the bitch and leave their dead body like dishonored. But I would say, I would say that, you're breaking an NDA whether you signed it or not. If you turned on the game, you saw the NDA, because I haven't seen a preview that doesn't have one when they give them out to press. So what about you, Go? Like, I mean, what do you think about leaks like that?
It does happen a lot, and it even happens sometimes in Rockstar's ranks, and they're pretty well known for their NDAs and their privacy and trying to protect their brands from being leaked out until they're ready to roll it out, but it still happens. And I feel the same way you do. I mean, I don't know why people within these companies choose to do it. Fame, fortune, notoriety for 5-10 seconds maybe, but they're not even thinking about the big picture. They're not even thinking about what that may do to their career, because you leak something, even if it's just Joker, for Injustice 2, which has come out today, the official trailer for him, it could cause some serious problems for you. I mean, you get fired, you get blackballed by the industry. And even if I worked for Rockstar and I was a tester on Red Dead Redemption 2 right now, do you think I would send you guys anything regarding Red Dead Redemption 2? No, I wouldn't. I'm not that stupid. I kind of like my job,
Yeah, it's a good point. What about you, Reg? I mean, what do you think about them? Do you care? Do you think blood should be spilled?
I think people have done way worse to get their couple seconds of fame.
That's true.
And apart from that, I think, yes, they should be held accountable to the full extent of whatever they signed.
Yeah. Or what if they, how about this? I have a question for you. What if they got it by legal means? Let's say some pirate uploaded a game ISO. I don't know how this would happen.
That's not legal means.
No, I said illegal means. I said, so they got it by illegal means.
Yeah.
Do you think the company should still go after those person? I mean, they would probably. You normally don't have anybody going after anybody just for one game download or movie download.
True.
But
you'd usually try to get after the uploader.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. What about you, Silver?
It depends on the context. Like the specific case here with Joker. Yeah, I think there should be consequences. It seems a pretty clear contract violation. So yeah, there should be consequences in that case.
Yeah, because it seems like it was a tester from. I mean, from what I'm picking up, was that it was a tester from France or somebody obviously had the full game and was playing some stuff, I guess.
I mean, the psychological motivation behind it seems pretty obvious to me, because it's a lot of people are driven by the desire to get the approval of others, or just to be cool, to seem cool, part of the crowd. And it seems like providing information like that seems like an easy gateway into that.
Right.
So I understand sort of the psychological motivation that can be there for doing it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're in breach of a legal contract, there should be consequences.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I don't really see any other way around that part of the discussion. Like, yes, I mean, because otherwise we're picking and choosing laws. Like this one matters, that one. It's no, somebody should be held accountable for it. Also, we can all
the only real exception to this is if it's something that's endangering public health, then it becomes a responsibility to disclose it, I think.
Yeah.
But
we're talking
but
just
that's the only exception.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, whistleblowing is a big difference between this and leaking.
And then you're still, unfortunately, under the guise of whoever is leaking it and their morals.
Yeah.
Like, what do they think? Is because I could say, I drink Mountain Dew, and fucking Silver could say, well, I've read one study where rats get tumors, so I'm going to tell everybody about this study, blah blah blah. And I mean, that kind of stuff is up to the whistleblower. But when it comes to this kind of shit, digital, like leaking let's say leaking somebody's beats, we've seen that before too, occasionally, where somebody from a studio will leak like a rap artist behind the scenes of a new song or something. It sucks.
Or a whole movie where the special effects are still missing.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to bring up, actually, is that there is a company impact that does occur, and especially now with companies, I think it's in everybody's best interest that it doesn't happen, because companies don't have to waste time trying to figure out all these avenues of stopping it and stuff like that. That's sort of the pie in the sky ideal, that it's bad for the industry as a whole. There's really no reason to do it, and I think that's it. So the next question is, and unfortunately, the names didn't pop up, but Final Fantasy VII and Kingdom Hearts pushed back to 2018. Seriously, will Kingdom Hearts fans be too old and too busy fighting health issues or surviving nuclear fallout to play these games? So I'm gonna not be rude, but this is my brusque answer, is that I don't. There's been okay. Let me change that. There are some. I think everybody knows there's a problem with Kingdom Hearts. I think anybody who follows the industry understands that there's something seriously wrong there. When it comes to Final Fantasy VII, that is the hugest of the huge, and I would rather have them take time, because Master Chief Collection is a indication of what happens when you take your biggest, or one of your biggest IPs of all time, and you basically give it the respect of, an ant on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So I am okay. Those are two different answers, but I think those are two different situations. So we stopped with Go. Final Fantasy VII, Kingdom Hearts pushed back to 2018. What do you think? Do you care?
I feel that they obviously have good reason for pushing them back. I mean, I rather a game, especially when it's being remastered, be given the ample amount of time to actually look good and play good. Just maybe even look better than the way it was originally, but at the same time, those expectations are high, extremely high. And yeah, I mean, if you rush something out, like what you just mentioned with Master Chief or Batman Arkham, the demastered editions, that kind of leaves a bad taste in consumers' mouth.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, that one was bad. I even heard Reg go when I mentioned it. But what about you, Reg? Like, what do you think about? I mean, are you like, it matters? It doesn't matter? Do you care?
I didn't expect Final Fantasy VII to come out this year, so to me it's not a pushback. And like you said, same with Kingdom Hearts, that thing has been in limbo for some time and probably will remain as such for a good time to come. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe they scrap it all, reboot it. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mention that. I actually think that, I think with Kingdom Hearts, there's enough substance behind some of the stuff that we're hearing that there is definitely an issue behind the scenes there. That does actually scare me a little bit for fans of that title. But I think, if I remember right, it was announced 4 years ago, maybe,
I don't
or something
know.
like that. And all we have right now
feels longer, but I don't know.
And all we currently have right now is like 8 minutes of, or like 3 minutes of footage, and a couple pictures. Yeah, it just seems really odd. It seems like we're looking at a situation where There's stuff going on behind the scenes. I mean, is it going to be a Last Guardian moment where people bought their PS4s for that, and a PS5 will be the one that releases it? It's possible.
Good question.
I'm fearing a Duke Nukem Forever situation.
Vaporware. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, yeah. Or where they're stealing money from one to pay for the other, which, man, that never, ever, ever works well. It just does not. Yeah, those are all good points. I mean, I don't know. I think you're looking at a situation where we're probably going to find out now that they've been postponed. Leaks. We were just talking about leaks, but I actually do believe that this is the time where most likely we're going to hear a leak of some kind about what's going on behind the scenes. Some companies are notoriously pretty good at holding their leaks in, if you guys have noticed. Like it's like you don't really hear as much about them, so it'll be interesting to see if somebody does leak it, which they may not, because, that company, I don't think they've been known for any big leaks. I could be wrong. Trying to think if there's any big
Not really. Squaresoft, no.
Yeah, I don't think so either, so... Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I will say though that in regards to Final Fantasy VII, I'm with Reg. I mean, I don't think I know a single person who really expected Final Fantasy VII to come out this year.
It's like Shenmue. It's like I mean, I love Shenmue. I can't wait for Shenmue 3, but anything they say about Shenmue I take with such a grain of salt that it's just covered in salt. Like it's just inebriated in salt, because at that point you just have to go, They spent enough money to get the rights, to get everything set up, to put the teams together for the biggest title of this kind, blah, blah, blah. Let's hope they do delay things. Let's not hope they rush things. We saw that with Sniper Ghost Warrior 3 just recently, where the publisher developer is the same fucking company. This is why I always tell people when they say, is it the publisher always forcing the developer? And I'm like, no, we have companies where they're both, and they still release games unready. For prime time. Microsoft, Master Chief Collection, they're the publisher, and technically the developer at that time. So, all right, well, good answers all. Next one, could Bethesda pull off a mini co-op open world following in the footsteps of Divinity: Original Sin? Good question. We stopped with Silver. Well, let's change it from could they, because they could do anything. They could do one where you're Howard the Duck, but... What do you think? Do you think there's rumors that they hired some co-op people we know about for sure? They hired some multiplayer, people. Do you think the next title, let's change a little bit. Do you think the next title for Bethesda is going to be multiplayer or co-op? Fallout 5 now with co-opian?
That would surprise me quite a bit, especially given how their worlds are built and sort of put together. I'm not really sure how that
is very high, right?
Yeah, that, but also like just in terms of the scripting and the bugs and so on, I'm not sure how that would work in terms of multiplayer. Yeah, I would be very wary of that. I don't, not within an Elder Scrolls game as we know them. I would certainly not think.
Okay, what about you, Reg? Do you think that we'll see the next Elder Scrolls or Fallout be multiplayer or co-op?
Well, like Silver put it, if Bethesda is doing something multiplayer, I'm expecting Goat Simulator levels of quality.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they might be doing. It doesn't really gel well with everything they've been doing so far.
Right.
It would have to be something quite different than what they are known for.
Yeah, true. What about you, Go?
Well, obviously, I think a lot of us Bethesda fans are hoping the next big game they're working on is Elder Scrolls 6. And since they already have Elder Scrolls Online, which is a multiplayer game, one would assume that Elder Scrolls 6 is not going to be like Elder Scrolls Online. Now, it would be kind of interesting if there was the ability to play single player and possibly co-op, because some people like doing co-ops in games, but I really do hope that, Bethesda just keeps their focus when it comes to the Elder Scrolls series and Fallout. Just keep it single player, or you never know. They may be working on a Fallout Online to go with Elder Scrolls Online, so who knows?
Yeah, we talked about this in Maddie's podcast last Friday. There was a lot of good points because I was talking about Fallout Online, and I didn't mean online. I meant the next Fallout being online, co-op, maybe 4-player, Brotherhood of Steel. Here's what it's like working for them, kind of thing, which would be very cool. And a lot of people are like, that makes more sense than online, because online, at some point, you might be stealing your own thunder even though Elder Scrolls and Fallout are fantasy and fucking Fallout, but at the same time, there is a connection between the players. You only have so much playtime. Like if I'm playing an hour of Fallout 4, I cannot be playing an hour of any other game. But I think that it would be, I think that Bethesda, while I agree with Reg saying that like it doesn't rhyme in many ways with their stuff, and Silver said a little bit about that, I actually think that Bethesda is trying some weird stuff. Fallout VR is obviously a huge push. They said that at E3 you're going to see a game, and a couple people who've seen it supposedly say it's like the game, it's above Resident Evil. It's the game that like will show you what VR is capable of. They all say that, but it is Bethesda, and they have been seeming to push it. And if Scorpio were to work with Rift, and it was like you can play, you know, there's something to be said for all of that. That Bethesda is trying some new stuff. The rumor is they're doing a space game. They've dropped hints just like the Uncharted team has in various games and various times where there's been some stuff about IPs, I think, trademark IPs, you know, signing those. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think co-op Fallout 4 or co-op Skyrim 2, the Skyriming. What would you call Sky? Where would be the next place? Do we know where the next place?
What haven't they done?
Wouldn't it be like the elves?
Okay.
The Isles?
The Elven territory? Yeah.
The Isles? Yeah. So, you know, is the Isles going to be co-op? I could see them doing co-op for one reason. If they treat the co-op person like a follower. If that person cannot affect your quests, cannot choose your answers for you, but is just simply available to run around and kill things and enjoy the experience with you, I can actually see that happening far more so than Divinity Original Sin's co-op RPG, which is crazy. Like even when I was first playing it, and I'm like, he said I didn't want to say that. What the fuck? And then I realized it was like, you know, you have to do your rock, paper, scissors bullshit. And I was like, whoa, that's insane. I'm not 100% sure Bethesda can pull it off, not because they're not talented, but because they haven't, that hasn't been ingrained in them since day one. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm super excited to see whatever they work on. I'm not 100% believing that it'll be Fallout or an Elder Scrolls game. I think those are farther out. So Brian Morgan says, any thoughts on we already talked about this, but it was a while ago. Any thoughts on Microsoft taking away the Snap feature on consoles? Overall, opinions on removing features that were originally a selling point for console. Snap is now the most highly voted for feature on the Xbox Vote website. Holy shit, I was not aware of that. And there's an obvious demand to get it back. I will answer that, and then we'll go. I think that their reasons for dropping it made sense. Performance. They wanted a snappier console. It's 4K, which means they need a slightly bigger memory footprint, which they weren't getting for the S. And so they decided, let's just remove it. I loved it. And I have noticed many times. In fact, I will honestly say this. It has slightly changed the way I play games, because I used to play with like a snapped West Wing while I was doing this, you know, or snapped, you know, you can still do some podcast stuff in their weird format. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see it back. And everybody I know loved it. I don't like the idea of removing stuff, so I can't pretend like what I said 30 minutes ago, I'm going to change right now. I do not like that idea. What about you, Go? Do you miss it? Do you care?
Yeah, I think the problem is we get used to something, and after, you know, Xbox 3 with its OS, and we had to shift to Xbox One, it took a while to get used to that OS. And by the time we get used to it, we're like, okay, well, we've learned it, we've figured out how to use it, and it's okay, it's not bad. Then all of a sudden, Microsoft decides, nope, we're gonna completely change it again. Right. And we're sitting here going like, what did you just do to our OS? We were used to it the way it was. We were happy with it the way it was, Microsoft. Come on.
Yeah, have you noticed, Go, that none of these guys ever say performance improvements? Like, that's all. Because that'd be fine if they were just like, it's faster. Instead, they're like, it's faster. Yeah. We've changed the location of, and right now, every time I go into, luckily PS4 doesn't change that much. I'm not a fan of how you have to go into some things, but it doesn't change that much, which I like. I go into the OS for the Xbox One, which is rare because I'm just launching a fucking game. I'm not sitting there using it like a word pad, but I still go like, wait, I hit this to the left to jump into this menu. There's some issues there. Did you use Snap? go?
Yeah, I did. Like for the apps that I liked using, like YouTube or Twitch.
Right.
It was just easier instead of going up into like your game section and just having to, pull it up. It was more time consuming to do it that way. You just snap it to the bottom. You can just go down real quickly and say, okay, I want this app, I want that app, and that app. And I don't know why. I mean, obviously, like from what you said, it must have been a performance issue as to why Microsoft did it, but it feels like their answer is similar to Nintendo whenever they do an update.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Reg? Would you? I mean, you probably didn't.
I have never used the feature, but I understand the disappointment of people who used it.
Right.
Simply because I so very vividly remember my disappointment with Windows 8.
Right, yeah.
Where's the fucking start button? Oh, we removed it because nobody is using it. Yeah.
Everybody's fucking using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand completely that people want it back.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Silver?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't own an Xbox One, so I haven't really personal experience with it in that regard. But I do hate when developers go back and sort of remove features that were key features as part of the console launch, like with the PlayStation 2 and backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
Or the PlayStation 3, rather, and backwards compatibility.
Right.
So...
As a person who owns a PS4, which you do, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say, do you use your PS4 very much, Silver?
No, not lately. I haven't used it for months, really.
Okay, so let's say Total War 2 comes out on the PS4, and you had the ability to snap music, a movie, a website to look at strategies, whatever. Would you use it? Would you use Snap? Okay, so
no.
That's also a point. I think Microsoft also might have looked at legacy users and new adopters, and they're like, oh, everybody who turns on an Xbox One, only 1% ever use Snap after this date. Prior to that date, people use it all the time.
Very good point.
But after that date, and they have every metric possible. To tell you guys just how many metrics they do have, I had a crash one time on a console preview game that I was previewing. I told them my username, and they were the shit these companies are able to glean off of your console is frightening. I mean, it was like button inputs, commands. It was crazy shit. So they can see dates and usage rates and all that stuff. And maybe, I'm assuming it was not enough to offset the performance they felt they were going to gain from not having Snap. So, yeah, it's a good question, but unfortunately, it does happen in this industry. Clayton Howard says, I have a few questions. What are your all folks' impressions of Call of Duty World War II? We answered that. And how do you feel about one of the heads of Xbox, Phil Spencer, saying that there needs to be a Netflix of gaming? Well, first of all, I think Phil's wrong. There are already Netflixes of gaming. It's just that because of the way the platforms have separated themselves, it's hard for them to handle them all. But GameFly, for me, is as close as we're going to get until like Microsoft does Game Pass. Reg, is it Game
Pass? Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things will happen. I think also this discussion revolves around something Phil said this morning or yesterday. He said that in single player games, they are more difficult now because multiplayer games are a service. People will return to them. Single player huge titles with closed in, no multiplayer are becoming a harder sell for developers to look at and say, boom, let's do that. So it may be that the Netflix of gaming revolved more around a game that everybody needs to deliver games as a service. I don't think he did say that, so I'm assuming it's the former. When it comes to like Netflix of gaming, do you believe there needs to be one, Silver, or do you think GameFly fulfills that? Or
I've sort of touched on this before when in relation to Nintendo, that I think one thing that could be a tremendous business model for Nintendo would be to open up their library in like a Netflix-like manner.
Right.
Like their library of old NES and SNES Game Boy games and so on, and just put them out there for like a subscription fee or whatever.
And just
allow people to access them.
Right.
Yeah.
Just have at it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So basically this does revolve around the Guardian article this morning where he said Netflix of gaming, and he was talking more. It was a little different than like what I said. It was, I'm going to it. I've looked at things like Netflix and HBO where great content's been created because there is a subscription model. Shannon Loftus and I are thinking a lot about it. Could we put a story-based game into the Xbox One Pass business model because you have a subscription going? Okay, so he's also talking about the good parts, which would be things like what we're seeing. Amazon and Netflix having TV shows that just wouldn't make it.
Their own original.
I would love for that. I think they tried it with Quantum Break and it didn't work, but I think they also spent too much money. Quantum Break could have been a TV show like Fringe, and instead they tried to tie it too closely to the game. So you agree, Silver? You would like something like that?
I would love something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
It would just depend on how they implement it. Because if they implement it with streaming, that wouldn't probably work. That hasn't worked very well so far. There would have to be some kind of technological innovation for that in terms of the input delay and so on.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to do like a Telltales but streaming, and you're trying to change it. I mean, there's Netflix of gaming is pretty generic because it could mean 1,000 different things. What about you, Reg? What do you think?
Well, I agree. I mean, I've said in the past that I think Game Pass will be a very interesting product to watch.
I think that's because you and I both love EA Access, right? We both use that, don't we?
Yeah, that's another great example. Yeah.
I don't maybe love it as much as you do because I don't think the value is quite there with that one. Simply because I have most of the games anyway.
It makes sense. For me, it's the 10 hours early is awesome. A week early playing 10 hours of a game. To me, that is so fucking worth the price. Like, it is light years beyond anything else.
I mean, the fact that I could go back and play Mirror's Edge, like Catalyst, a game I never got around to actually buying or playing.
Right. Yeah. What about you, Reg? What were you going to say?
I have it anyway on PC because of the 10% savings.
Oh, right.
That offsets it for me again, so it's basically free. I think Game Pass on the Xbox will be doing something similar, where you get a rebate for games that at least they're taking out of circulation.
Yeah, that's a crazy. I always forget about the deal on early access because I play the games and I usually get copies or go buy them, whatever. I keep forgetting that it also offers a discount, which is. It is, as Reg said, in a way, if you use it even once or twice, the game or the service is free at that point. Like you've paid for the service. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. What about you, Go? Like a Netflix of gaming?
Yeah, well, I hope that it'll be way better than PlayStation Now, because A, the price is too high, and B, it's not bad, the streaming. I did play a few games on PlayStation Now during the free trial period, but it could have been way better. And I felt like the monthly fee that they ask you for is too high. So, I mean, there's definitely a way to do it right, and then there's also a way to do it wrong. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I think that it's easy to discuss this and not realize that most of the time you can't have the chicken before the egg. And so Microsoft has to start out with Game Pass, right? They have to go, okay, does this work? And then they have to figure out how it works. And then they have to roll them. Even Netflix, guys, I had Netflix when it started. Bull fucking shit, it was good when it started. Hulu. I've had all of these when they started. What happens is it takes a while. Even Amazon took a long time to start getting titles. And to many people, arguably, even though Amazon is massive, it's not as good as Netflix's offerings, and they're smaller. So money doesn't always matter either. You can throw money into something and it's just a big, shiny, shitty shit instead of a somewhat okay looking shit. So yeah, I think that when you look at it, sort of stand off and look at it, it's going to take this generation easily, or at least the next 2 or 3 years for like Microsoft to maybe look at it, try it, see if it works. If it's a huge boon to them, I could see them doing, I wouldn't want a Telltale kind of thing, because Telltale does that on their own. But I wouldn't mind an episode of it, like I wouldn't mind a level. Okay, people are gonna get pissed, but this is the only example I have. But if somebody said, okay, you're gonna do Call of Duty World War II, best name ever. We're gonna do it level by level across each week. When you do the level, then they take some data from how you do, and that impacts in some way. They have to figure out how that's going to matter too, because otherwise it is just Netflix. If you're just all playing the fucking level at the same time. That means nothing. We could all time it if we wanted on our own. We could do that. But if they were like, we're going to take the data and we're going to adjust the story, we're going to see who chose this, and later on we're going to make that choice possibly matter. Here, I would be interested in that.
What I would like is them to go all the way back to the original Xbox and put those games in this streaming service.
Well, it sounds like obviously, a bunch are. So, original Xbox. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the original, like Knights of the Old Republic and those games. So, I mean, I know they're not backwards compatible on the Xbox One, but similar to how it is for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Now, there's plenty of like older games that they're putting over there in their library for you can have access to. And I think they could possibly do the same thing with the original Xbox. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think original Xbox is sort of the one part where Microsoft has the success available to them and it isn't really getting it yet because they haven't made them backwards compatible. Because I think a lot of those original titles people would play, and they're not getting a chance. But that's because IP issues and stuff as well. So yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, it also is just so open-ended because, like, look at Amazon. They do something different than Netflix. Netflix says, here's a month or here's a season. Amazon does the weird thing where they show like one episode of like 10 different shows, and whoever watches it, then those shows that are watched the most get chosen. I mean, can you imagine like if smaller developers said, okay, I only need to make the first 10th of the game, and if it's good, then the next 10th of the game, you know, I get, Microsoft pays me to make it in a year. The problem is games aren't shows. The delays on games, and that just wouldn't work. What were we going to say?
No, I was just going to say that maybe if instead of doing it that way, you know, you have developers, throw a pitch out there. Okay, here's our idea for this game. And then you have another developer do it. And then people go and they watch each presentation and they decide which one they like more. Like this idea seems more appealing than this idea. And the one that gets the most votes is the one that gets backed. Yeah. And that's an interesting premise.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I would like to see it as long as, like I said, the delays, the technical issues don't crop up. Yep. Clayton asks one last question. E3, with many companies now doing their own press conferences throughout the year, do you think E3 will turn into a Comic-Con style affair dedicated towards gamers? Where do you see the future of E3, and how do you think different conferences will change? The fact is that wars don't like go and choose it. Well, maybe they do go and choose a newspaper or something like that. Like, it seems like gaming is one of the only places where you force all the publishers to come to one place and go, hey, like, this is where you can talk about your stuff and the only place that'll matter. And so over time, the bigger publishers have said, no, we're going to do ours a day early. We're going to do our own event, blah, blah, blah. And it's happening more and more, not less. And so, I mean, in all honesty, for me, I think that E3 won't necessarily disappear. But I think companies will they can't all have their smaller events because like journalists won't go. They'll be like, nah, it's too many fucking events. But I can see that the major players at some point will have E3 be where they put some games and they show their games, but they don't have a presence there. It'll take a while though, because I think the conferences will have to lower and lower in their impact until it feels comfortable for somebody to say, Microsoft's doing their event in fucking March, you know? It also is all about money, right? If PR companies can figure out a way to do this, if PR companies for Microsoft can say, oh, we figured out a way where we get just as many hits, but it's cheaper to do it in March than at E3. Because Phil Spencer was very open, and he said that you get lost at E3. It's announcement. The only thing that stays high is super good news or super bad news. And in smaller companies I've talked to, the B tier, they all say the same thing. They're like, dude, going to E3 it's harsh. It costs a ton of money. And the fact is that other than floor space news, you don't get a lot of news like that sort of travels and sort of gets out there. So what do you think, Go? Like, do you see
I agree entirely. I agree entirely. Like, it's like expensive as hell for these developers to even just promote their game, like in a trailer. And like on the Sony stage or the Microsoft stage, just to do that, not even a booth or, you know, going crazy like Take-Two did a year ago with Mafia 3, having an entire area, you know, mocked up to look like the French Ward in Mafia 3. I mean, that costed a small fortune, most likely. I do think that the issue is it's kind of like the Daytona of like gaming conventions right now. And it's the big one And a lot of like the big companies, they have the money, they'll go. Smaller companies, less likely to go because they don't get noticed and they're going to take that hit anyways. But there's also the fact that there's other gaming conventions, the different PAXs, Gamescom, the one in, what was it, Tokyo? What's that popular one in Tokyo?
TCS or
yes,
TCS, I think.
So yeah, I mean, there's so many other conventions you can go to. Plus, you can do your own presentation now, like Activision. I mean, yeah, Activision did a couple days ago of Call of Duty World War II. I mean, yeah, we don't like the name, but they didn't wait till E3 to do it. They did it, just a few days ago on their own, and it still, had a massive following. All the big gaming sites covered it. They had a lot of people watching it,
and it was smartly in sort of a news cycle that didn't have a lot of news. It was actually a pretty good time to do that because there wasn't like, Rockstar hadn't just said, blah, 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 a game is coming out. So, Reg, what about you?
I think E3 has lost relevance year after year. And I think them opening up to, what was it, 10,000 attendees this year is a tiny first step in the direction of becoming more of a consumer show.
Right. Yeah. Which I think we have enough consumer shows. Like, so, I mean, I dug E3 for the news, not necessarily, you know what I mean? Like, and news delivered by some of those companies. But I agree. Yeah, it seems like it is. What about you, Silver? You see it changing, staying the same?
I certainly don't see it ever aiming towards gamers. I think it's always going to be aimed at the industry. And I think really the main appeal for E3 and a lot of these conferences in terms of industry is networking. Yeah. I mean, it's like for the film festivals like Cannes, Venice, Sundance. You, as an industry person, your main reason for going there isn't necessarily exposure of your product, because you can do that throughout the year, but it's to network with other people in the industry, to get contacts with other publishers, with developers, and so on. And I think E3 will always be one of the main proponents of that, at least for the foreseeable future, as I see it.
Yeah, it's weird because GDC feels like the old E3 in a weird way, except more business-like. Because I went to GDC and seeing like how that was handled, which was publishers and devs talking in depth about game development. It was much more cultured, even though there was some fan interaction. It was not near as high as E3 or PAX, where PAX is, I mean, that's all it is. Like, PAX is 100% fan interaction for the most part.
Yeah.
Or Gamescom.
Or Gamescom. And that's great, by the way. I'm certainly not saying they should stop. But yeah, I think E3 is in a harsh place because you can't, once these guys have pulled away, you can't like call them up like a ex-girlfriend and say, we were good together. We were, let's hang out again. They're like, no, we've set up our own systems. It makes more sense for us to do it. And the constant jockeying for like, I'm first place, I'm the first conference, we're the second conference, we get exactly 2 hours. Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, Activision, Deep Silver, all of these guys also have official Twitch channels, which I have noticed, especially Deep Silver loves to do like in-depth like streaming of a title that they themselves are delivering, and they can say, come to our Twitch channel. And in a weird way, it's a small amount of money, but that is also another way to make some money back and be like, okay, if a YouTuber like Karak is making money off our game, great, let's make our own YouTube channel. And we've already seen that, and they have. And now they're making Twitch channels and whatever, whatever new one comes along. So yeah, I mean, things are changing in how information's delivered. It's not just E3, but I think that E3 is one of the first that we've seen make changes, like Reg said, to sort of try to impact it. So we have a couple more questions, but I'm going to break here for people to take care of nature calls or get some more pop and stuff like that. We'll be right back.
More blow.
Yeah, more blow. Jeez, or breaking shit. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. What's going on?
Just gotta get some water.
I need to get a new one eventually. One day. There we go. I'll bring it back.
Man, people beat Little Nightmares so much faster than I did. Cray. That's insane.
How fast?
So I beat it it took me about 6 hours.
Okay.
Most people
I've seen way shorter. Yeah,
most people are saying 3. And I'm like,
yep.
Maybe I don't know. I mean, I by the way, I could make it last longer or shorter. But I was looking around too, which I thought a lot of gamers would say, but I think maybe some of the people who got that were more into the just, it's so weird as a game, because if you want to beat it, you just run from left to right. If you want to beat it. And you can do that.
Like Inside.
Like Inside. And I think people, myself, I think I just didn't play it that way. I wanted to look around because I thought people would ask me about that. And now I'm seeing that they didn't. I'll be right back.
You still playing Persona, Reg? Or
I'm still taking a break from that. I was at like 76 hours and then I said, okay, I need a break. I need to play something else. And I haven't gotten back to it yet.
Yeah. What are you guys playing?
Puyo Puyo Tetris currently.
Oh, cool. Nice.
I'm gonna start on Blood and Wine, the last Witcher 3 expansion. I just finished Hearts of Stone, so
cool.
Loved it.
And my start screen of the Switch is full. I have to go to more software now.
Are you guys gonna get Mario Kart 8?
I already have it.
Do you like it?
There it is.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I'm thinking about getting it because I was a huge Mario Kart. Yeah.
Everything is unlocked in this version, so not like the Wii U where you have to
that's kind of
earn your stuff first. Only the cosmetics, but everything else is unlocked already.
Nice. Yeah.
All the different go-karts and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's funny we talked about E3 because my latest Discuss video is kind of a two-parter. First, it was like me doing my own E3 predictions. You know, kind of most of them were kind of safe, and then like next week I'm doing subscriber predictions. So it'll be interesting to see their predictions for what they think is going to happen in E3. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm just glad we have technology and streaming, so we don't have to go. Because I'd rather just watch it here.
E3 is also kind of like early access. How many % of those games ever release?
True. Yeah.
And Karak knows how expensive it is to go there, just to book a flight or a train
freakish. Freakish. And that's if you want to go like lowbrow and like stay in a fucking hovel, that's one thing. But I don't. Like, if I'm traveling somewhere, for me to be happy and stuff like that, I need a nice bed without leeches and fucking lice and shit. Like,
some internet.
Yeah, some internet. I rented, and Cadiz snores, so I rented a separate room. I paid for a separate room. Because I was like, I'm not fucking, I can't, I need to get at least,
he's getting up with a pillow over his face.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's traveling is a bitch, and it only costs money. You don't get anything from, I can honestly say that every time somebody emails me and says something like, hey, do you want to look at our game at E3? And I say, I'm not going. They're like, no problem. We'll just send you copy. So I'm like, fuck it. Why? Because I wouldn't have gone to anybody's booth anyway. That's another thing. Every person who contacts you that you set up to go, that's all the time you're going to have at E3. Yep. It's that busy. So to me, they already contacted me, and I get all that without going, and I can still make content. In fact, the content I made about E3 last year did incredibly well, where the content from PAX that I went to didn't do as well. I was able to watch the news and go, here are my impressions of. I didn't need new footage because most people aren't even allowed to have that. It's like I just showed footage from E3. So, all right, I got to give myself a signal, thumbs up, and I got to give it longer because last time I gave it and it was so fast, it took me like 2 hours to find it. Okay, sup everybody, we are back after a little breaky break, and we're gonna continue with some of these questions. Let's go with Rigged for Epic. I always like his username.
Yeah, I like Rick. Yeah.
Do you guys think Bethesda will stick to their no review copy policy for the media, or do you think they are regretting the move? They are not going away from it. I think we can all agree with that. Do we need to go through each person? Does anybody believe? Yeah, okay. It's a good question. It's a good question, but it's worked out for them. I will say this. If we have 2 or 3 games where it doesn't work out, and Dishonored 2 had some issues, enough so that like major publications have mentioned its release having issues. If that happened a couple times, I think we'd revisit that question. Rigged also asks, given the Scorpio is about to move the goalposts again on what consoles can handle, do you think the Switch is going to seem like a less appealing option for developers? I'm just asking this, given Blizzard are now hinting Overwatch may just be too much for the Switch. I think we talked about this already, but we were talking about it when we were talking about the Switch. I don't think anybody here thinks that developers are chomping at the bit, right?
No, I mean it's like I joked about. It's already underpowered compared to the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And I'm not talking about the S or the Pro or the Scorpio. It's underpowered, and it's a completely different console. It's a different beast. So I think that developers that are interested in it are interested in it, and those that aren't. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. That it doesn't mean that some aren't, because some are going to look at the Switch and go, for what budget we have or whatever, this is a place. And the at least for a while, with less third-party titles, there's more chance to shine. So if you do, you might make that choice of being like, hey, we should jump in. We could be that. But here's the thing. People are going to get mad, so just bear with me. In a way, it feels like the VR situation, where it's like people thought, oh, we can jump into VR because no one's doing it. But the cost and the time and the development, it won't have that with the Switch because it's still a console. It's much different than VR. So I think there's more of a chance of that kind of thought process working. On the Switch.
Well, I think like mobile type games, maybe like Angry Birds, but a little bit more like fleshed out, could work on a Switch. Because
Angry Birds RPG, man, just a totally decked out Nintendo / Pokemon / fucking Angry Birds. I might play that, especially if you had like a lot of customization on the head.
Yeah.
The different beams. Rigged says, I'd love to see someone bring the old Commandos games back with a modern look. What old game series would you like to see revived? We've talked about this a lot. Is there a new old game series? Because I think we've mentioned this almost in every
it's actually kind of funny he mentioned Commandos, because wasn't it a couple of months ago you reviewed it even, I think, that game with the samurai.
Exactly.
Basically, I don't remember the name of it.
Neither do I, but yeah. And it was very Commandos-like. Yeah, very. But is there any new title we haven't mentioned recently that we would like to see given a new paint job? I mean, I think we've talked about the ones so many times.
Yeah, I mean, there are so goddamn many for me.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I was looking at No One Lives Forever this morning, and I've said it twice already in other podcasts, but that's a title that I'd like to see, but it's an IP hell. It will never happen.
Yeah.
So, so sorry, Rigged. That's not a very good answer, but we've talked about it so much that I think that going over it anymore is just sort of mental masturbation. You also asked, given YouTube seems to be making things very difficult for new channels to get off their feet, what tips would you give to people just starting out? Or would you say hold back and see how it shakes out? Thanks, guys. Love the show. So I would okay, first of all, the only people who should be creating content are people who aren't asking anybody if they should. I said this in a past content. If you ever fucking ask me, should I be creating YouTube videos? I will tell you no, because you asked me. You should just be out there creating them. If that's not exactly what he's about. I'm just giving my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
YouTube in the past required a ton of drive. Now just requires more. Should you start now or hold back is a slightly different question, because that's a worry about how YouTube is. I think it's best to start now and make your 1 cent a video than it is to start later and make no sense a video. But if anybody's going to try to make a career out of this, I was not able to because of a plan. I was laid off. And I took work thought process 40 to 60 hours a week, and I turned it into 40 or 60 hours a week of game creation stuff for the YouTube channel. So I think that's pretty rare. I think if you want to start it on the side, you can, but people will notice too. Starting on the side's hard, because like you can tell somebody doesn't get a lot of uploads in, or they don't get the time to cover something because they're fucking working so they can buy lettuce. Yeah. I mean, what do you think? Is there anything that you would say, like, is there any getting off your feet?
Well, the truth is, I mean, even when I started the gaming channel in 2014, there was already a lot of other gaming channels out there already. So, I mean, you're just going to have to go in expecting that there's going to be plenty more out there wanting to do what you want to do. You can't focus on that. It should be about the passion, about creativity, about playing video games and enjoying video games and putting together content. You shouldn't be worried about making any money, because the truth is you're not going to make money. It may happen one day somewhere down the road, many years from now, when you have maybe like 6 figures worth of subscribers or 7+. But for now, it can't be about the money. It's got to be about the passion and the desire to make content, whether you're making content for, 3 people or 300 people or 300,000 people. And that's what it should be for all content creators. And if you're very, very lucky, eventually you might be able to make it a career. And hopefully, I think they'll figure things out and it'll come around. Things always come around when it comes to these issues we're going through. But these are dark times for YouTubers. And some content creators are going to survive it. Others aren't. That's just a fact of life. But the fortunate thing about being at the bottom is you don't have to worry about that anyways.
Yeah. It's a zero-sum game kind of thing. What about you, Reg, or Silver? Either one, do you have anything to add?
I think it depends on what you want to do. If it's something that lends itself well to streaming, I think you should just go to some of the streaming platforms. There's
Beam
a much better.
Beam is really good.
Yeah,
and allows payment right away.
That and also right? Beam also has currently very few people on it. So if you want to start out.
True.
Exactly.
It's one of the better platforms to get your foot in, because on something like Twitch, you will probably get lost unless you pick a game that's not really well covered.
That's true.
And find some people that want to watch it. That was also my experience with YouTube streaming. I mean, I did dabble around a bit with streaming, and when I started it on YouTube, I usually had a couple of people showing up watching. Whereas on Twitch, I usually just stayed alone.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Silver? Any advice or thoughts?
Just, I think, mirroring some of what you said, in that I think probably the most important aspect is passion. That you have to have passion for whatever it is you want to cover. I mean, it's often infectious when someone is really passionate about the thing they're covering, or even if it's a stamp collection, if they're really passionate about it, that can be really interesting and compelling. Sometimes. So yeah, just be passionate about what it is you want to do and try to do it. That would be my only advice, really.
Yeah, there's a saying that I'm gonna butcher. I'm not even gonna try, but basically it revolves around passion sort of being the cash or the monetary, funds for the human brain in many ways. And like it does equal, for me at least, when I'm really passionate about something, I don't even think about money. I'm just like, this is fucking awesome. I'm covering. And so yeah. Luckily, I'm still doing that. I didn't start to make money. I started because like people told me, oh, you're funny. I want to watch. Would you do a game video? You should record it. So I think that what's happening also is a switch, not completely, but somewhat of a switch to people just looking at it as a means to an end. And that kind of thought process is usually, I'm just being honest, is usually sniffed out by viewers at some point. It seems to me, at least, that viewers over time can sort of figure out that somebody's looking for money versus wanting to. There's something, I mean, psychologists, people I know in my family, my wife being a psychologist, she can pick up on it quickly. She can be like, no. And then, you'll find out the person, wasn't really excited about whatever they were covering, but they were paid, a couple grand to do a video.
Well, it's the same thing about pretty much any creative product. You can often tell when there's heart in it, and when it's just like made by numbers to appeal to a certain demographic, maybe, or whatever. And it's tailor-made rather than made from the heart.
Yeah, I certainly would tell anybody to just start making videos and go, because another thing that no one likes to talk about, except once you have done it for a while, you're a little bit more courageous about it. The fact is even IGN, GameSpot, all the big companies, and small people such as myself, just one person, and go, you will notice one thing. Your videos, you do get better making videos. And I'm telling you right now, like, I'll go back and look at an old video and be like, what the fuckity fuck? Like, what was I even, but I know what I was thinking, and what I thought was at the best of my ability at the time. Like, and your best of your ability gets better. It's just like in martial arts, where we always say a white belt's the scariest person to fight against, because they may know a move, but they don't know when to use it. And so you leap in and they kick you in the balls. And you're like, okay, your distance was fucked up, unless you wanted to kick me in the balls and, and neuter your partner. But that's one of the things that happens. You think it's the best, and then you realize it's not. You think it's the best and you realize it's not. And with proficiency comes efficiency, comes those different agencies in which you can create, and you can see somebody ramp up over time. No one, even people I know who are good at audiovisual, start out good in YouTube. and I Skilled was that way. He knew everything about audio visual you could possibly imagine, but some of his videos had mistakes because of this and that reason, because it doesn't transfer perfectly, or cutting a video game ain't the same as cutting a fucking movie. I mean, there are huge differences between how you get the footage and what you do. So I wish you all the luck if you decide to do it, though. It is a scary situation, and certainly I'm telling you right now, guys, don't leave your day job. You have to start it on the side, even though I said people will notice. Man, and Twitch, I think the one thing we should speak about is there are different platforms. Beam is cool because it's got low latency, it's modern, and it's a smaller audience. And I think that is its also biggest negative, is that it's a smaller audience. But Reg is right. It doesn't matter if your audience is 8 billion people if only 3 fucking people watch it. Well, you might as well do Beam that pays you right away. I mean, Twitch is so fucked up that they even basically just now admitted that one of the reasons why they don't allow everybody to get paid right away is because they don't even have a big enough fraud prevention center. I'm going to tell you, of all the things you don't want to hear from somebody handling your money, is that they do not have a big enough fraud center. That is a company that is just completely crashed internally. They are not handling growth very well. They've got different tiers now, affiliates, sub-affiliates. You can do this, and maybe in the future we'll allow you to do this, and blah blah blah.
Different sub-levels.
Yeah. What happens is that dumbs down that instant.
Yeah.
So Beam may be a good place. Restreaming is great because you can stream to both, except Twitch requires you to have a very low bit rate. So if you stream to Beam and restream to Twitch, your Beam stream, unfortunately, at least as far as I know, still doesn't transcode, and you have to have it lower. But there's other things, there's other options out there. Unfortunately, a lot of those other options won't make you any money for a while. What's Google require? $100 to pay out? Go? It's $100.
Yeah, at least for AdSense. Yeah, you have to have at least 100. But I mean, at the same time, formerly having being part of an MCN, even though it was a no contract MCN, at least I know that I'm getting that money. It's not 20 or 30% going to somebody else who's basically doing nothing for me.
Okay, there's a bit of advice that I will give. In no way, shape, or form do you even think of believing anyone from a network contacting you and saying you should join. Never believe them. Never believe them. I'm telling you right now, because they do take a percentage which is not taken if you just get paid via AdSense. There is nothing that they can do to magically alter that. You'll hear them be like, we have different ads, blah, blah, blah. We've already seen that doesn't work out because YouTube has already restricted ads on some people's channel. YouTube is still in charge of that. They'll try to lie and say that, we've built a package of special ads. And it's like, well, YouTube just shut them off, bitch. So what the fuck did you just do for me? When they used to fight IP claims, that's when they mattered. Because what would happen is I would upload a Nintendo video and I wouldn't even hear about the IP claim. They would email the network. Once they dropped that 3 years ago, they become useless. They take even 1% of your money is 1% you won't get. So do not think about it. Contact me. Contact YouTubers who aren't on networks, and we'll help you out. We'll tell other people about you. We'll do more than they will in a smaller amount of time. Edmund Dietz. Oh, here we go. He told me how to pronounce this because I called it Diets one time. Damn it. I can't remember. He asked another one. Favorite Final Fantasy game? This is a question for all of you. So go. Do you have a favorite Final Fantasy game?
Yeah, I do actually. What was it? It was the one that came out on the PS2. It was a long time ago, but I loved that.
Well, 7 came out on the PS2.
It might have been 7. I mean, there's been so many, and it's been so long since I played a Final Fantasy game.
Oh, gotcha. But it was one of the older titles.
One of the older ones. So, but I remember how beautiful it was at the time. I enjoyed playing it.
I bet you it was 7, yeah.
It very well could have been 7. So, I mean, I'm actually thinking about probably getting it whenever it comes out, maybe 2018 or 2028.
Yeah, or 2028.
But I don't know. I loved it, but for some reason, I just never really dived into Final Fantasy. I guess because there's so many other games. And I was also, even back then, really into open world games like Grand Theft Auto because, Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, San Andreas all came out first for the PS2. So
makes sense. Yeah. What about you, Reg?
I think you know the answer. Final Fantasy 15.
Okay. What about you, Silver?
I don't remember. I don't remember which one it was. If it was 4 or 6, because the I and the V get switched around in my memory. But yeah, the one with Kafka, the Jester, and Sizzle the Knight was probably my favorite. Yeah, that was probably my favorite.
There was a question asked earlier, what old game would you want to see remade? I just popped into my mind, thanks to Silver. There's a game called Pandemonium. It was on the PS2, it was on the Xbox, and it was a 2D.5 is what they called it, side-scroller. I don't think I've ever enjoyed that kind of side-scroller as much. I mean, I can still hum the music. Pandemonium 2 wasn't as good. But Pandemonium had you be a chick or a jester, and which is why it reminded me. And if they said we're redoing that, there would be some screaming and hooting and hollering. So back to favorite Final Fantasy for me, I would agree with Reg. Probably. You know what? Which ones has the gambits? Is that 12 or 13? Where you could say, if you're this,
one of the 13s had that certainly, but I don't know if the previous one had that.
Gotcha. I actually enjoyed some of that, but I would say this recent one, I know it's sacrilege for a lot of people. But having played the older ones and recently played them, they have a lot of problems. And they were good at the time, which is great, but you do continually refresh your memories as you play. And I think 7 was great for a lot of people. It wasn't my favorite. But I think this recent one was pretty...
Okay, I had to correct mine.
What is it?
It was actually Final Fantasy X.
10?
That's one.
Gotcha.
That's what I was thinking of.
I think that's Cadiz's too, if I remember right. I'll have to ask him. He's coming over this weekend. I have to ask him.
Yeah, it came out in 2001 for PlayStation 2. That's the one I played.
So Edmund also...
I prefer Chrono Trigger to any of the Final Fantasy games, though.
Okay, but we're not because that changed.
No, but it's the same company though.
But it doesn't matter. It's not Final Fantasy because they're just asking that because the moment you mention that, I want to mention Phantasy Star. So, Johnny says, Karak, ACG, as a musician, I really appreciate the games that use music to effectively induce specific emotional moods in the player. However, I haven't felt this done effectively in recent games. Perhaps the best example of this is Final Fantasy VII. Are there any recent games that achieve that consistently? Now, I read in Discord while he asked this, and there was a little bit more information because I was like, it hasn't happened in a while. It happens all the time. He is actually more talking about the mixture of like diegetic and non-diegetic music and music paced and tempoed with what you're doing versus just amazing like themes, right? Just like Halo, when you first turn it on, you hear a bunch of monks. So are there any recent games that achieved that consistently for you? There are a bunch, actually. And one of them is Halo. But the reason why is because Halo, it's a lot of people think it's tracks, but it's actually multi-layered tracks that they inject as you're doing different things. And so it builds on itself. I actually really find that music fantastic. There's a couple others. I like some of the Assassin's Creed musics. I think they're really good. But I get what he's saying. He's basically saying that the ones that are there to induce a specific mood don't seem to be happening as much as more there to just show you this awesome track. And I would agree. I think in some ways we do see where it's like the composer's just doing awesome. What's his name? Abzu?
Austin Wintory?
Austin Wintory, I think, does a good job of, and he even said this in the interview, of letting the game stand on its own. The music is like, if there's a hole in the game, like a hole in the paper of the background of the game, that's where the music comes through to fill the hole. And I like that. I like that idea. Is there any, we'll just start with Silver. Is there any game that you feel like the music, you don't have to fit exactly to his question, but is there any game that you feel like the music really did induce a emotional feeling for you recently? Do you remember?
Yeah. I'm still playing the Witcher 3 expansions. I'm trying to get through them. And there are a couple of moments there. Like the emotional moment I described, I think it was last podcast, that got me emotional was in some part due to the music in that scene.
Gotcha.
And there were also several moments in the first expansion, Hearts of Stone, where there are very subtle musical cues relating to a particular character who has a particular theme where if you're talking about him or something, his theme will play in the background very subtly.
Oh, Christ. That's cool. So he doesn't even have to be there. It's if you even mention him, like it filters in?
Yeah.
Fuck. That's, yeah. I like that.
That's an example.
Yeah, it's a good example, too. What about you, Reg?
Whoops. I'm thinking of Last of Us again.
Oh, gotcha.
Cool.
Yeah, the acoustic guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an acoustic guitar in that, which I actually really did like, and I haven't played even close to all the way through that. But yeah, that's what 2014, 15, 14,
13 maybe. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 13.
That's a good example. What about you, Go?
I'm going to go with Red Dead Redemption because I like the fact that the music fits so well with the game. I mean, the setting, the very end of the Old West, so you expect Western music. And there are parts where you're just, on your horse walking around in the prairie. And you hear it, it's very subtle, but it still sounds beautiful. But there's also more intense scenes whenever you're like chasing down a stagecoach or being pursued by outlaws or even lawmen. So I do like the fact that in different areas, like when you go to Mexico, the music changes as opposed to when you're down in like the New Austin area. So I love that. I love the fact that it changes. Plus, another thing I like is if you want, you can just turn the music off and play it that way. And it's beautiful both ways, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's got a really good ambient, like just the soundscape itself. The environmental sounds are good in that game. I would say that I think a lot of us, including probably him when he asked this, but maybe not. It just seems like it might have been a mistake he made. A lot of us, whenever you talk about a video game and emotion, almost everybody's thinking drama, suspense, horror. But to me, I notice it with comedy. For example, Headlander. Headlander is a fantastic game, made so even more by particular moments. There's this one moment, there's a cutscene right at the end, where out of the blue, this 1970s guitar starts wailing. And you're like, what the fuck? I mean, and I don't mean out of the blue like, haha, we're doing this. I mean, it fit perfectly. It was one of those moments where you're like, holy shit, and it made me laugh. I'm like, that is a really good work. And their use of like natural instruments, waterphones, which is an old style horror movie instrument, stuff like that. I think that game did a really good job. And I think we forget, we're like, it has to be a somber moment because those are the bigger emotions we talk about. Like what made you cry? Maybe a game did, but for me, it actually occurs when the game is comedic, like a Double Fine game or something like that. And I notice that music, I notice it a little easier. So,
well, then Deadly Tower of Monsters is what comes to my mind.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Do I have my poster up? I do not. Yeah, Deadly Tower of Monsters has music that is fucking phenomenal when it comes to that. Good example. Jenkins says, when reviewing, does length come into the discussion, and should it? If a game offers 40, 80, or 2 hours of game time, how do you compare them? We can all ask that. I can just switch it to you guys. When a review comes out and you guys are watching it, if they don't talk about game length, do you feel like some of that information is missing? So my answer would be, of course it matters, but it also matters how good it is, because as my joke that went off somewhat spectacularly, I guess, in Ghost Recon's Wildlands, or no, that was Andromeda. I can flick my nuts for 60 minutes or 60 hours. It doesn't mean I would want to. And that is really exactly how I feel. Like it's not the 2 hours. The number, when I tell somebody it could take you this and this amount of time, I never want somebody to look at that and go 6 to 8 hours. No, I'm saying 6 to 8 hours for the stuff I talked about. That's why the fucking length is at the end, so that you get all that shit and go 6 to 8 hours. 6 to 8 hours of what he just said is in this game. Now I need to make that not 6 to 8 hours, because if every game was 6 to 8 hours, you'd have a cut screen that fucking took 3 hours of it, and every game would be purchased right away. So I think it's what happens in that amount of time for the price. If it's a 2-hour game and it's amazing and it's $60, you're going to be hearing from me, and not in the way you want. I think that pops up. So Silver, if you get a review and it doesn't talk about time, review length, or how they compared it, I'm assuming that to you feels like there is some pretty serious missed information, right? I mean, you feel like there's not enough for you to go on?
Yeah, we want some sort of idea of the length I can expect from the game, the sort of playtime I can expect, or time investment I can expect from it. Yeah.
If do you have a hard and fast rule for $60? Like
not at all.
8 hours.
No. I think that's completely silly to me.
Yeah.
That seems really ridiculous, because no, it's all about value, value for money, and value is this nebulous term that's highly subjective to you.
Well, let's unnebulous it for people. If I could have a 2-hour blowjob that was spectacular, or an 8-hour one that was not, I would choose the 2-hour one for the same cost. I mean,
Yeah.
it's sort of gross, but anybody who hasn't had sex, I apologize, you're not going to understand that. But anybody who has, you can switch it to whatever gender that you approximate and go from there. The fact is that like it's what happens in that time. Yeah. I mean, it's all that matters. And I do think that there has to be something though, don't you, Silver? Like if a game's $60 and it's 2 hours, there has to be, is there replayability? Is it new game plus multiple times on purpose? You know, there has to be some like
you would think so, but I mean, I can probably see a 2-hour game maybe blowing me away so much that I would feel like I still got value for my money.
Courage.
I wouldn't necessarily dismiss it offhand.
That's a brave comment.
But I would find it unlikely, yeah, but not impossible. No.
What about you, Reg?
Well, if it was a $60 title and it just had 2 hours playtime, I would feel cheated.
Well, listen, what if it was 2 hours? Imagine the best 2 hours or the best parts of a game, and all of those were just that 2 hours. That it would still say, yeah, gotcha.
No,
I know what you mean.
No way. It's too little for that amount of money, even if it's the best 2 hours ever.
Does the inverse or opposite, I could have that wrong, matter to you as well? So that, let's say, like, do you look at padding in games and go, yeah, this game's too fucking padded. Like it's not really that long.
I mean, I for example, Persona 5, I mean, I like the game of what I played so far, almost 70 hours, but there's a lot of padding in it.
When that fucking cat tells you you have to go to sleep for the 7,000th time, I almost punched a developer spiritually. I was like, if you fucking, because they're like, you can now go out at night. Bullshit, because that cat fucking stops you like every 30 fucking seconds.
Yeah, true.
You can't go outside.
You want to create infiltration tools. No, let's not do that today.
How many lockpicks can I create? Well, we've chosen that you can create 0 because something's happening tomorrow. And you're like, what the fuck? What the hell? Like, and sleeping becomes the activity. And you're like, I don't understand how sleeping is the activity I chose. What about you, Go? Like time, effort?
Yeah.
What do you
like the first part, like when it comes to reviewers, I feel reviewers have a duty to inform the community, the customers, clients, people watching their stuff, about exactly this, as much information about the game as possible. And like, yes, hours, I think you need to have a broad idea about how long is this game? Is it a 5-hour game? Is it a 50-hour game? But that doesn't determine whether or not I'm going to buy a game. I mean, yes, I'm an open world guy. I love getting lost in games like Skyrim, Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto, and Zelda. But at the same time, I do appreciate quality over quantity. So that's what's more important to me. I can enjoy a 10-hour game like Arkham Asylum way more than, say, a really crappy open world game that would give me unlimited hours of gameplay.
Yeah, you just hit a really good title. That's a title we don't talk about a lot. But that's a really good example, like an Asylum, which isn't as long as the bigger titles in that series. But if it goes up against a game like Two Worlds or something, you're like, well, Two Worlds just is too much. Like it's not good enough. So yeah, I mean, the thing is, again, I think that it's up to and I've missed length or felt that I was explaining it well enough and didn't say a number, and so people tweaked. And I get that. I do get it. I think that there is a difficulty there because if you say a number, I actually just had this. I was talking to Reg during the break because I just had this with a review where people are like, but it's this much money in this many hours. I'm like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. First of all, we play it differently. Difficulty is a huge. I mean, if Silver and I play a single level in Arma, it may take us 10 times the amount of time it might take Go, just depending on the fucking difficulty we chose. Especially in a game like Arma. And it depends on the different games. Nier Automata and the way it refreshes your story each time can appear like it's 6 hours. I had somebody say, I beat the game in 6 hours too short. I'm like, no, you actually didn't. But it's so subtle in the way it's trying to tell you you're not done that I can see it being missed. I think that you should know in reviews. I think they should do a pretty good job of telling you. But
I don't think Nier was subtle, but okay.
Here's why I do. Because I believe I can be wrong, and obviously for a lot of people it was subtle. So I think that for some people, like I said, for some people it was too subtle. I didn't think so. I understood right away what was happening, but
they basically tell you.
Yeah, but when people see,
they tell you there's text.
But when people,
you have to basically skip the quest to not see it.
But when people see the content repeated, it triggers them. They want to. It has to be new all the time, or a place that they're grinding. That is fine. But yeah, I'm not saying it's right. So next question. Writing on Games says, we hear a lot about games being too short or lacking content. On the other end, are there any examples in your mind of a game being too long or having fluff? Oh man, there's tons. There's fucking tons. A lot of Assassin's Creed games, which I like. And we can call this fluff. You know what? There's a difference. What about a game just being too long that isn't fluffy, but it's just too long? Like it feels like it overstays its welcome. Do you guys have any examples? Reg, what's your example?
No, I was just nodding and saying yes.
Does anybody
think?
Yeah, because you're gonna want to say filler. You're gonna want to. Like that's gonna come up where we're gonna start. But a game that doesn't have fluff. I will say this: the new Persona game, some of it is fluff, and some of it I do feel it overstayed a little bit. I like the game, but I do feel that it's a mixture of just overstaying its welcome, drawing out your story composition, and then also having some fluff with it. And I don't even know if it's called fluff. It might be anti-fluff because it's actually telling you speed up to go to the next day. But what that does is slows you down because the game is
maybe odd. Yakuza 0.
Oh, okay. I would agree with that. Ignoring the fluff. Yeah, that story did. Oh, I'll tell you another one, and I love it. But L.A. Noire. L.A. Noire's story, it wasn't even a super long story. I felt that the way it was told, there were some jumps that weren't done well. And for me, by the time I got done with it, I was like, okay, I'm done with this. Like, and not in a, I hate it, but in a, I'm done with the story. Like, it needs to be told. It needs to just happen.
And, of course, Andromeda.
Yeah, I mean, even ignoring the fluff in Andromeda, saying, let's say we decided we're just going to play the main story missions and engage with that narrative where we can, and then returning if something sends us off, I would agree that Andromeda. Also, a game that I don't think we've ever mentioned on this podcast, Two Sons, Second Son, Two Sons, Second Son. It's the PS4 one. Troy Baker plays the main character. I think it was
Two Sons.
Title.
Yeah.
Two Sons,
okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That and I don't mean the one where like you're walking wheelbarrows around. I'm talking about the Second Son games, which are the psionics. I felt that the story was a little long in the tooth. You know, you get that moment where you're like, why didn't they wrap it up right now? Like they should have wrapped it up this moment. They haven't.
I have like Earth Defense Force 4.1. I thought was way too long. I think it's like on the highest difficulty, it's like 90 or 100 missions for the single player campaign.
and each one gives you like little snippets of story, but they could condense it. Yeah, that game could be fucking 45 minutes and it'd be fine. Yeah, that's a good point. But I think that unfortunately, fluff becomes the reason. So it's hard. It's hard to really like pin something down and say this for sure. I will tell you, for a game that I felt went nowhere with its plot, start to finish, and where I was like, even with all the fluff, and people are going to be like, that's the big, one of the most known games. It's true. But I actually felt Skyrim was that way. I felt that the story for Skyrim, in no way, shape, or form, if you just did the story missions, felt like it made sense time-wise. I just did not feel that. And because there was one time where I did play it with just the story, main mission, leveled up when I needed to continue that main mission, and I was like, they wasted some time here. So, let's see. Matt Hughes says, any hype for Tekken? Which ones did you play? How long do you stay with it average? Is Injustice 2 more important to you? First of all, does anybody here play Tekken?
I used to. I don't play it anymore.
So I'll be the only
back in the 90s.
Yeah, I'll be the only one to answer that. I'm excited for Tekken. I don't play him much. How long do I stay on him? I couldn't even tell you because it's been so long since I've stuck with a Tekken. Is Injustice 2 more important to you? Very much so. I felt that Injustice 2 did what the Mortal Kombat games have not done very well, which is make me interested in the story. Just wanting to see what happened versus didn't necessarily mean it's amazing. Yeah, Injustice 2 is, I'm super psyched, and ready to go. I want to play that. Sounds German says, what's your favorite video game weapon?
Lightsaber.
That's not a bad answer. I mean,
that's what I used in my Fallout 4 mod.
Yeah, Silver, go ahead.
Tear down death claws.
You mentioned No One Lives Forever. There's a gadget in that game. There are a bunch of gadgets, but one of them is really brilliant, where it's basically a mechanical cat, and you wind it up, and it goes over to the enemies like meow meow,
yeah.
And then they pick it up, and then it blows up.
Yeah, that's actually a really good weapon. That's a really good weapon. I'm trying to think, I think a lot of people would go with a Ratchet and Clank style or a shotgun from something. I'm trying not to do that.
Do you know Armed and Dangerous by Planet Moon Studios?
Of course, the shark gun.
Yeah, the shark gun. Yeah, this one.
That game was awesome.
Or the one that kind of turns the world upside down. I think there's one as well where it basically so they fall down instead.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna be honest here. I was trying to not say this because I know a lot of people are just gonna shit because I know that for many people it's their anti-favorite. Every game of Halo, I have to have the Needler. And it's so awesome because no one else likes the Needler when I play multiplayer. So they're like,
the Needler is cool.
The fucking Needler, when you know how to use that, maybe not so much multiplayer, depends on how you play. But there is something I fucking love, the sound, the look, the idea. The idea that you're this fucking mechanical futuristic porcupine is shooting out crystals into people's faces makes me die laughing. And then when they explode later, there's nothing better than running around a corner and hearing that later, boom, you're like, oh yeah, bitches. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, that is, I was trying to think of something more eclectic, and I know people are going to be like, the Needler fucking sucks, man, but I friggin' love that. We just played Halo a couple weeks ago, and my brother was like, take the Needler, dude. And I'm like, I will.
Also, what's up, I think probably the go-to mention here is probably also the BFG, right? From Doom. Big fucking gun. Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought too. Or the Halo handgun. And I was like, it's great, but it just doesn't resonate with me.
No, it doesn't really have that personality.
Primordial Entropy says, have any standout moments in gaming in 2017 so far? We're only 4 months in. I mean, there's been a lot of amazing games. I thought Persona was, despite any issues I mentioned, was really fun. There's been a couple smaller indie games that are amazing. The fact that EA isn't doing a season pass is not amazing. I know, we mentioned that last podcast until we find out what that means. Trying to think, is there anything for you guys 2017 to where you're like, oh, go for it, Sower?
I mean, I just finished Hearts of Stone, and it's probably the best expansion.
Is that
at least story-wise? No, I mean it is for me. I mean, I didn't get around to playing it last year.
No, that's all right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So, but for me, it's the best expansion I've played story-wise since Mask of the Betrayer for Neverwinter Nights 2, which is probably my favorite video game story. Of all time.
Mask of the Betrayer was a very good. That was an expansion too, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was for Neverwinter Nights too.
Yeah, that was very good. What about you, Reg? Is there any like standout 2017?
Well, the campaign of Puyo Puyo Tetris, because the writing is so bad, it's funny again.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. I don't know if I call it a highlight, but what about you, Go?
For 2017, I mean, are we talking about games or just DLCs or expansions?
It just says standout moments in gaming. So anything.
All right, standout moments in gaming that I've played so far. Well, I mean, the only thing really new that I've played so far in 2017, I guess I get to go with Zero Horizon Dawn. I mean, Horizon Zero Dawn. But yeah, there's been some pretty cool moments in there. And with Allie, as I like to call her, I mean, it's a very different game, and I like the setting in the future. And I like the fact that unlike some people, I like the fact that they have a female protagonist and she works. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's been plenty of moments in the game when you feel her frustration towards this tribe. Like, why the hell do I want to join you guys after what you did to me when I was just a baby? I mean, F you. I'd rather just stay out here and chill in the woods and, wrestle robo dinosaurs.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that I don't know why that game didn't flash up, but it's I liked it better than Persona. I think that it was. I mean, I I get why people play games for particular protagonists or not. That, like, it makes sense because there's some games I don't like because Zelda has never grabbed me as much as other titles because I'm just not a huge fan of that character. So it makes sense. To me, totally. It can be because it's a robot and I hate robots. You know, it just depends on what a person may dislike or like.
Yeah.
All that being said, though, I will say, this is just me being honest, I don't get caught up. I don't even really think about the male, female, like that stuff doesn't come into my head, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I play all games, so it's like it burnt. Maybe it did in the past, but it couldn't have, because Phantasy Star 1, you play as fucking chick, and it's my favorite of the RPGs. So I know that for some people it bothers them, but I would say that it's a game that is well worth checking out because I didn't feel like anything was in my face. Like I saw, what's SWG? Social Justice Warriors, SJW, whatever. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people were thinking, oh, it was created by them or, you know, blah, blah, blah. But Tomb Raider has a female, and I didn't hear a lot about that with Tomb Raider. I think it becomes another way to diss on something you don't like for whatever reason.
It's also such a stupid label, the Social Justice Warrior label.
Well, and I think in a way it's a real label. I mean, I'm sure there are people, almost every label's real for some people, right? Like they fit it. But for that game, I just felt like it was a good game. It didn't, you could have been playing a Hobbit and it wouldn't have mattered because it was more about the world. I mean, the way she felt, how she was treated could have been done by a male protagonist, by a unsexed protagonist, or by a fucking robot. So to me, having her be female, I know a lot of people are like, you know, yay. And to me, I was like, it's much more about the gameplay. And I thought the gameplay was fantastic. I had somebody just recently on the review post that they were bored after 4 hours. And I was like, wow. Okay. I mean, I get it most of the time when people say that, but that's a game that I think there's a reason why it has pretty much universal acclaim, you know, from critics and stuff like that. So it's not Sniper Ghost Warrior 3. Oh my God. Did you see the review I did where he's walking up the step or walking up the ladder and just keeps going? There in my review.
No, I've stayed away from those games since the first one. So yeah.
The bug I had is where Cadiz and I were playing, and Cadiz was climbing up a side of a mountain and just kept climbing, and so we climbed forever. We were like 600 feet above the game world. That's just one of the multitude of hundreds of bugs that we had. So it's so weird to have the difference between Horizon Zero Dawn and that, you know, a game that has almost zero bugs. A couple, but nothing near. And then you have that game where you're just like, how did this ever get shipped? You know, it's like the Alekine's gun of 2017. Anyway, that's it for me. Does anybody have anything to add before we end? I should never end this podcast on Alekine's gun. Damn, sorry, people. Anyway, does anybody anything to add? Anybody? Anything going on in anybody's channels they want to talk about? No?
Just not really.
No. All right. Well, everybody, enjoy your weekends. Thanks for staying with us. I definitely appreciate it. I will try to get this podcast up the next day or so, probably today. We'll see. Today being, by the way, Friday the 28th. So if this gets posted like next month on the 4th, people can be like, it wasn't today, bitch. So anyway, peace out, everybody. Thanks very much for stopping by.
Take care, y'all.